As y'all coming to this live, please share this live, man. It's going to be a little brief build with the lovers of freedom. A little quick build with y'all, man. Y'all know I'm always going to tap in. Shout out to South Africa. What it do? What it do to my brothers and sisters in South Africa? Tanzania, the real name, Tanzania, South Africa. As y'all coming to this live, man, please share this live with everybody, man. You know, because this is something that, you know, we definitely got to build on, man. Something very important, man. I'm just letting the brothers and sisters come into the live. Let the live build up. Share this with all lovers of freedom. It's been a minute since I went live, so I had to tap in. Let me just go ahead and hop on right into it. You know, we got enough people in the building. We got enough people on the live. So let me just go ahead and hop on into it, you know. If you don't know by now, you know, the leader of the indigenous peoples of Biafra, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, was arrested, captured by the neo-colonist government of Nigeria the other day. I do believe last night or either the night before last, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu was captured. So, you know, I had to come on here, you know, and give my response to, you know, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu being arrested and captured, you know what I'm saying, who is indeed at this moment and has been before, because this isn't the first time that Nnamdi Kanu has been arrested and targeted by, you know, our historical enemies. Exactly, brother, kidnapped, you know, as a political prisoner. That's something that we have to make clear as well, is that when these, you know, great brothers, great freedom fighters, great leaders, you know what I'm saying, get captured by historical enemies, they are indeed political prisoners or prisoners of war. So Nnamdi Kanu do fall along those lines of political prisoners, international political prisoners, because we do have international political prisoners, because we have international freedom fighters. You feel me? We all are Pan-African freedom fighters. So yes, Nnamdi Kanu do falls under the lines of being a political prisoner and a prisoner of war, which leads to something bigger. You know what I'm saying? Because this live, I'm trying to take this live to something bigger, a bigger discussion, a bigger area that we have to build on and touched on, you know what I'm saying, that our historical enemies always try to use to try to solidify the reason that they attack independence movements, or, you know what I'm saying, colonies or colonized people, or nations of people who are struggling and striving to demonstrate their rights, their human rights for self-determination as a people. You see what I'm saying? And these people, you know what I'm saying, that are usually attacked are revolutionary nationalists or nationalist freedom fighters like Nnamdi Kanu and all the freedom fighters, you know, that we know across this globe that are actually fighting for their peoples, man, to have, you know what I'm saying, that's fighting for something bigger for their people, which is total independence from their oppressors. You see what I'm saying? So this leads into something bigger, which is this, what I like to call a colonized trick or a colonized strategy that our historical enemies like to use on independent freedom fighters or colonized peoples, man, or movements, organizations, revolutionary organizations or revolutionary movements or revolutionary peoples who try to, you know, struggle for their people to, you know what I'm saying, strive and obtain the human rights to self-determination and political power, which is totally, in the end, is independence. You see what I'm saying? So one of these things that we need to focus on, that I've seen throughout the historic chronology of freedom fighting people, colonized people, that we see over and over with black people specifically, you see what I'm saying, is when black people or oppressed people, You see what I'm saying? Start independence movements or start movements, period, to take the struggle to another level of struggle, which is to ultimately separate for their oppressors. Now, this is something that I always see over and over. We see from our historical enemies on revolutionary leaders. We done seen this happen to Thomas Sankara. We done seen this happen to Kwame Nkrumah. We done seen this happen to Amilcar Cabral. We done seen this happen to Patrice Lumumba. We've seen this happen to Malcolm X. We've seen this happen to the Black Panther Party. We've seen this happen to leaders of the Republic of New Africa. We have seen this happen to Martin Luther King Jr. We've seen this happen over and over and over and over to individuals, leaders who are revolutionary nationalist leaders who tend to take the struggle to an international level, a human rights level, be attacked by neo-colonialist governments or Western-backed governments or Western, you know what I'm saying, historical enemies, period. Because these are what these individuals are. They are historical enemies. And something that I know that we need to struggle more against as a colonized peoples, and the reason why colonized peoples need to unite is because we have oppressors. We have oppressors who are uniting and are backing these attacks on colonized peoples and revolutionary nationalist leaders, man. So if our historical enemies are coming together and uniting to take down, to continue to take down the people who are standing on the righteous side of history, meaning the right side of history, because we tend to forget that we have historical enemies who are also collaborating, who are also uniting against peoples and movements who are struggling on the right side of history. This is facts. The Nigerian government, listen to what I'm telling you, the Nigerian government is not doing this by itself. All these colonizing governments are not oppressing these individuals, attacking these individuals, kidnapping these individuals on their own. No, they are getting help from their historical allies. This is why this is in a time and a stage of history where we have to unite as oppressed people, colonized peoples, to fight against what they are doing. Period. I'm telling you right now, if colonized peoples, colonized black peoples, nations of peoples who are struggling on the right side of history, if we do not unite, our historical enemies will continue to kidnap our leaders, our freedom fighters. Period. Period. This is facts. It's going on every day across the global world community. Because that's one of the areas that we are totally lacking in. We are lacking in colonized black peoples all across the world, unifying against our common oppressor, our common enemy. Period. And to lead into the bigger topic and the bigger thing that I wanted to build on with y'all today is that this terrorist label that they always tend to give revolutionary freedom fighters, on how they try to flip the word terrorist, or how they try to flip the label terrorism and try to flip it on the peoples who are on the right side of history. Who are on the right side of history. Who are on the right side of history that's fighting against oppression. Who are fighting against the real terrorism. The real terrorists kidnapped Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, and now it's holding him as a political prisoner. This is facts. But we have to understand and study the strategies of war on how they try to manipulate wordplay, how they try to manipulate terms and terminology and flip it on the rights, on the people who are on the right side of history, who are fighting for true freedom, who are fighting for true liberation. And they get labeled as terrorists. Because if you notice, every time, brothers and sisters, every time when one of our righteous brothers, one of our righteous freedom fighters, one of our righteous sisters, one of our righteous freedom fighters get captured or kidnapped, the first thing they want to put through the world Western media, they want to display through the world Western media, is that somebody is a terrorist. And they know that these individuals are not terrorists. They know that IPOB is not a terrorist organization. They knew the Black Panther Party was not a terrorist organization. They know the Republic of New Africa as a nation was never a terrorist organization. They knew Malcolm X wasn't a terrorist. They knew Thomas Sankara was not a terrorist. They knew Patrice Lumumba was not a terrorist. They knew Kwame Nkrumah was not a terrorist. They knew Fred Hampton was not a terrorist. They knew Martin Luther King Jr. was not a terrorist. They knew Huey P. Newton, Bobby Seale, was not a terrorist. So we know Nnamdi Kanu is not a terrorist. But this is why I'm always, when I'm trying to teach y'all and I'm trying to tell y'all that Western media is the enemy of freedom fighting people. Western media is not on the side of the oppressed. Western media is not on the side of the oppressed. Because when you look at Western media do not put the label on the true terrorists. On the true terrorists. The Nigerian government are the true terrorists. The Fulani herdsmen are the true terrorists. Boko Haram are the true terrorists. The Western imperialists, collaborators, allies, the Western powers, the Western global oligarchs, the Western empire, who are colonizing Africa, who are colonizing African people, who are conquering African people at the moment. They are the true terrorists. The British government are the true terrorists. Because it was the British government, along with the Nigerian federal government, who has now captured Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. They are the true terrorists. For years, and still is, the United States of America government are the true terrorists. Because they still have, the United States of America still have black freedom fighters, black political prisoners kidnapped and captured inside the United States of America right now. Mutulu Shakur. Sundiata Acoli. H. Rap Brown. Kamal Siddiqui. Mumia Abu Jamal. Russell Maroon Schultz. These are all black freedom fighters like Nnamdi Kanu, captured inside the United States empire. So brothers and sisters, this is what I'm trying to tell you. We all have the same common struggle. We all have the same common oppressors doing the same thing to black leadership all across the world. This is why Pan-African unity is so important. This is why colonized Africans have to unite. This is a call for unification for all colonized Africans who are on the right side of history. I'm not speaking to the neo-colonialist Negroes who are helping our oppressors who are on the wrong side of history. No, I'm talking to the Africans who are on the right side of history. That's who I'm talking to here today. And shame on the black Negroes and the black people who help our oppressors conquer and capture our leaders. Shame on you Negroes. Shame on you black Negroes who help our oppressors capture and kidnap our black freedom fighters. Because they are neo-colonialist Negroes, niggas who look just like me and you with black skin, who are helping the Western Empire conquer and oppress black people all across the globe, specifically in Africa, in Nigeria, and other parts of the global community where Africans are being colonized. So we should, right now, this is a call for unity right now. The capture of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu should be a signal to the world, to the global African community of freedom-loving people that we are in a stage of emergency. We are in a stage of emergency and alert. Anytime they capture one of our freedom fighters, this is the time for people to come together. This is a time for freedom-fighting people to come together. No matter where you at across, we're scattered all across this globe. Biafrans, New Africans. We're scattered all across the globe. Nobody is stronger than oppressed people. Nobody is stronger than freedom-loving, oppressed people. Or what I like to call freedom-fighting nationals. Nobody's stronger than us. The oppressed can never be stronger. The oppressor can never be stronger than the oppressed. Never. We have the numbers. But we have to watch and we have to study how our enemies move historically and have always moved. With these terrorist labels on righteous freedom fighters. You can't be a terrorist when you're fighting against oppression, when you're fighting against poverty, when you're fighting against ignorance, when you're fighting against hunger, when you're fighting for decent housing, when you're fighting for land. How can you be a terrorist? How can somebody that's being oppressed be a terrorist? How can somebody who loves their people, somebody who wants to free their people, somebody who wants to take their people out of the clutches, out of the hands of oppression, be a terrorist? That's impossible. That's impossible. That's impossible. No, the ones who are restricting, stopping at all costs to let freedom-loving people go, to let freedom-loving people separate, are the true terrorists. Period. Don't ever let Western media, listen to what I'm telling y'all, don't ever let Western media play with your mind. Don't ever let Western media play with your mind. Because they have been labeling true freedom fighters, true righteous people as terrorists ever since the struggle of mankind, womankind has been in existence on this earthly plane. They have always labeled the righteous as terrorists, while at the same time letting the real terrorists murder innocent people every day. Police, military, governments who are murdering innocent people every day and letting real terrorists run into innocent villages, communities, and murder innocent babies, mothers, fathers every But they don't get called terrorists. They don't get called terrorists. I just don't want our people to get caught up into their mind, because warfare is mentally. This is why you have to develop a military mind. Warfare is mental first. It's always mental. So you gotta always watch Western media wordplay. Because the first thing they want to say when they first captured Nnamdi Kanu, the first thing you see in the headline is leader of terrorist organization. That's the first thing you see in the headline. Leader of a terrorist organization. How can somebody who never committed a terrorist act, how can an organization that never committed a terrorist act, how can an organization or a colonized freedom fighting people who just protest for a referendum or a plebiscite be terrorists? How is that possible? How is that possible? That makes no sense. You see how they do it to the Black Lives Matter movement here in the United States of America. You see how they do it to the black people here in America who just trying to protest for their human rights of being murdered by police every day in the United States of America. These organizations get labeled as terrorist organizations. This is why I'm always trying to tell people. This is why I'm always trying to tell people that the best strategy in warfare is to control the narrative. Freedom fighters must always control the narrative of oppressed people, because we are the voice of oppressed people. We can't let the CIA, Western media, dictate or control no part of oppressed people's fight for self-determination. We can't let them give our leaders labels. We can't let them give organizations and independent movements labels of being called terrorists when we're on the right side of history. That's revolutionary. Controlling the narrative is being revolutionary. We can never ever, because we all know our historical enemies control media. Media is our worstest enemy. But at the same time, this whole media platform, social media, we have our own media platforms and mediums. So through our own platforms and mediums, we have to counter that. We have to control the narrative of who is what and what side of history these individuals are on. Especially when we're fighting for a righteous cause. In the end, to free Africa. To free Biafra. To free New Africa. We're on the right side of history. They're on the wrong side of history. This is why we can't let them control the narrative. We are not terrorists. IPOB is not terrorists. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is not terrorists. The Republic of New Africa are not terrorists. The Black Panther Party are not terrorists. Malcolm X was not a terrorist. Bobby Seale is not a terrorist. Huey P. Newton was not a terrorist. Fred Hampton was not a terrorist. Thomas Sankara was not a terrorist. Emil Carr Cabral was not a terrorist. Patrice Lumumba was not a terrorist. Kwame Nkrumah was not a terrorist. Samora Machel was not a terrorist. Julius Nyerere was not a terrorist. Che Guevara was not a terrorist. Mutulu Shakur is not a terrorist. Mumia Abu-Jamal is not a terrorist. Our freedom fighters, our freedom fighting leaders are not terrorists. Oppressed peoples are not terrorists. Winnie Mandela was not a terrorist. Nelson Mandela was not a terrorist. See how we got to control the narrative? See how when we speak it, we speak with power. We got to speak with power to let our historical enemies know that we are not terrorists. Fighting for the human rights for self-determination, independence, and land is not terrorism. Don't ever let them control that narrative. Don't ever let them put that label on righteous people. Under human rights and international law, we're on the right side of history, brothers and sisters. But in order to maintain that, in order to control, in order to control the right side of history, we must always control the narrative. This is the main lesson I want you to take away from this live and to take amongst the people, is that we have to control the narrative. And also with the power of our voices and the power of media, we have to use our voices in order to free our freedom fighters. Because at this moment is the time that we should be unifying all across the world to free Nnamdi Kanu, to free Mutulu Shakur, to free Mumia Abu Jamal, to free all political prisoners and prisoners of war. Period. Mutulu Shakur is our brother. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is our brother. Any righteous freedom fighter that's captured behind the walls, that's been captured by historical enemies, are our brothers. These are our brothers in arms, no matter where they are across the globe. These are our brothers, and we must fight to free our brothers. This is why I want y'all to get behind the Free Mutulu Shakur movement. As new Africans in America, get behind the Free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu movement. Together we can free our brothers. Together we can free our brothers. Free our brothers. We don't have to do it alone. We don't have to do it alone. We have to do it together. And only people who are righteously fighting for the same struggle and the same goal and the same end game can do this and make this happen. Anytime one of our captured brothers or our captured combatants or our captured freedom fighters is captured, is a rally cry. A rally cry to unify brothers and sisters across this global community who are fighting for our restoration of our nations. Period. Or to free our nations. Period. I was trying to add you into the live, brother. For some reason the connection ain't go through. You can resend the request to be in the live. For some reason it didn't connect just now. But yes, I want brothers and sisters to understand that we have to struggle. We have to study and struggle. Because in order to study and struggle is for us to go further in development mentally, to understand what our enemies are trying to do, what they've been doing to our leaders, our freedom fighters, and what they're doing to us, period, because we are freedom fighters also. Don't get it twisted, brothers and sisters. Everyday working 9-to-5 citizens are freedom fighters if they're fighting for a just cause, if they're fighting for a just nation, or they're fighting for independence, or they're fighting for the human rights of self-determination. You are a freedom fighter too. Don't get it twisted. We're all leaders. We're all leaders. We have to get past this colonized way of thinking that it's just one leader. It's never just one leader. Never. It's never just one leader. We're all leaders. And this is why I'm putting out the call. I'm putting out the unification call for all freedom-loving people. It's the time to seize the time, brothers and sisters. It's the time for us to unite. Period. It's the time for us to unite. Because if we do not unite, our historical enemies are always going to find holes, and ways to manipulate the world and to capture our people, to capture our leaders, to capture our freedom fighters. Yes, my brother, we all have to speak out. Because when one of our brothers is captured, all of us are captured. So we have to lend a voice. We have to be the voice. Because now we are their voice. We have to be the voices, brothers and sisters. And that's why, as soon as I found out the news of Mondi, the news of Nnamdi Kanu being captured, this is exactly why I went live, because I wanted to put out the call, and we always got to use these type of things as it's a negative, but we have to turn it into a positive. So we have to use our voices and use these moments as teaching tools. Because we know he's not a terrorist. He's not a terrorist. We know he's not a terrorist. So we have to make that clear that he's not a terrorist. Because we have to restore. We have to restore the Biafra by any means necessary. We have to restore. We have to restore Africa. Let's be honest. We have to restore Africa, period. Because if Africa is not free, if we can't get Africa free, there's no way no black man or a black woman can walk around in any part of this world with dignity or freedom as a black man or a black woman or a black child, when our ancestral land and our motherland is not free. It's impossible. It's impossible. So yes, in closing, brothers and sisters, as always, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, IPOB, me being a descendant of Igbo people and a comrade, an ally in the struggle for Biafran people and for the new African independence movement inside the Empire of the United States of America. We're sending out the call for unification, to bring attention to the situation of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. I'm speaking for the new African independence movement, that we have to put out the call and to be the voice for this brother. So on that note, I'm going to sign off, brothers and sisters. But continue to share this live with everyone. We're putting out the call. Free Biafra. Free New Africa. Free all political prisoners and prisoners of war. Free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Free Mutulu Shakur. This been Haki Kweli Shakur, man. AKA Ike Chukwu. Free the land by any means necessary. And put out the call to free Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Put out the call to free Mutulu Shakur.